This is a review of my first 150 hours on the Atom 80. There's a lot of videos out there about a lot of other motors and maintenance and things like that, but there aren't as many on the Atom 80, so I figured I'd put one together to show things I've learned over my first 150 hours with the Atom 80. A motor I've grown to love. It's a great motor. I've had a great experience with it, but there are a few things that I've learned, so I'll get into those. But first I'll start with just setting the scene of where I fly, how I fly, so you can kind of apply that to yourself and where you fly and how your motor may be a little different or act a little differently. But overall, again, I've had a great experience, so let's get started. Here's a little data about myself. You can see I fly in pretty easy conditions here in Southern California, no real extremes. The model year of the engine's 2018. I purchased it in February 2019. I've done all the maintenance in accordance with the owner's manual, running the regular 125 centimeter prop, Motul 800, and I use just 91 octane pump gas. I have had one engine out, most likely due to a fuel metering arm, which I'll talk about later, but possibly due to carb icing when I was flying at some of those colder temperatures shown. I have 130 total hours of flight time for 150 hours on the engine, so 86% of the hours on the engine are in the air, and I fly mainly cross country, so that's that. One of the problems I had in my first 150 hours of owning the Atom 80 was in my cylinder head temperature, and it really came after my first carburetor rebuild at about 25 to 30 hours. I noticed my plug was running a little lighter than normal, cylinder head temperatures were a little higher, and I found that the culprit was most likely this. This diaphragm is replaced at the same time as you do your carburetor rebuild, and I thought they were all the same, but they're not. From what I can read online is they come in two different versions, an old and a new, and this is a new version that can be kind of told by this nub at the top is slightly shorter than older versions, and that's a big difference. Why is it a big difference? We have a gauge, right? We have a gauge to tell how far that metering arm needs to be, how high it needs to be before it touches this. So what's the problem? The problem are these. These may look the same, but they're not. This one is a standard Walboro one you can buy on Amazon for the carburetor. And this one here is modified by Southwest Airsports. They look similar, but if you can see, the Southwest Airsports one has a slightly shorter peak in the W. And that's a key, that's important. What that does is it allows the metering arm, when you adjust it to that gauge, it's slightly higher. So when it's higher, the diaphragm doesn't have to travel as far to make contact, and it allows more fuel flow, thus making your mixture more rich. This is the metering side of the carburetor. In the middle, you'll see the metering lever with the U-shaped notch in it, and that's what comes in contact with that diaphragm. If this arm is too low, like shown here, then the diaphragm can't push this lever all the way down to allow the needle on the other side to come all the way up. That was a condition I had. But with the correct gauge, like I showed you, you raise up this arm a little bit and that needle comes up all the way, allowing more fuel to your engine. One of the first problems I had was on this joint right here, specifically at this weld. I noticed that there was a lot of leakage, and over time, this weld actually failed, requiring replacement of this whole elbow. It was not a huge job. The hardest part was actually getting these rivets out. And after you get all these rivets out, this comes right off, and thanks to Glider Sports, who sent me out a new elbow quickly, I was able to get back in the air in no time. One of the other problems I had was in the exhaust plate right here. Every 20 to 30 hours it would break, requiring replacement, and Vittorazi has since addressed this in the MY20 version. This is an MY20 version plate right here. In the MY20 version, they've made it thicker, the hole geometry is different, and it should hold up longer. I'll show you some pictures of some of the broken plates in the past so you can get an idea of where the failure was, but it was always typically in this joint right here. I did have an issue during my 100-hour inspection, and it was when I was replacing the roller bearing inside my piston. This is my original piston. And it occurred when trying to pull out the circular clip that holds in the roller bearing. You have to be very careful. And that clip is hard to get out, especially the one that comes from the factory. There's not much to grab onto, and if you're not careful like me, you'll scratch the side of the piston. So I got it out. I got a new piston, and Sky Sports USA actually sells a slightly different circular clip. I'll call it a newer version that has a little tab down the middle that gives you something that you can really grab onto and make it much less likely that you'll scratch the side of your piston. So there you go. So there you have it, my first 150 hours with the Atom 80. And as you can tell, there really wasn't too much to talk about because it's been so far pretty hands-off. I think it's a motor that more people could be flying. At 150 pounds, I have plenty of power for climbing. But I think, you know, even at 180, 190 pounds, I know people that launch at that weight from LZs at 3,500 feet all the time and have no complaints. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. I'll see you at my 200-hour inspection. I'll make a video on that. And I'll leave you with some pictures of my 100-hour inspection so you can see the inside of the cylinder head, so you can see some of the carbon buildup I had for the fuel I use and the Motul 800 that I use. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you at 200 hours. Thanks again.